My mother-in-law's dining room was the kind of place you held your breath in. The chairs were too stiff, the napkins too starched, and the chandelier too bright. Everything in that room was designed to say one thing: I run this house. I sat there with my ankles crossed, back straight, trying not to wrinkle the only silk blouse I owned. There was pot roast on my plate, collard greens just how my own mama makes them, macaroni that was a little too dry, and a knot sitting heavy in my throat that had nothing to do with food. She'd been on edge all evening. You could feel it in the way she slammed the cabinet door a little too hard when she thought no one was looking. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes when she asked me, "So, how's that little job of yours?" Like I worked at a lemonade stand, not a full-time office. My husband, Darius, sat beside me at the head of the table. Her head of the table, technically. He'd taken his usual spot to her right, out of habit. I slid into the chair on his other side, like an afterthought. His mother, Denise, watched that from the kitchen doorway. I saw it, the quick flicker of irritation in her eyes. She hated that shift. To her, Darius belonged at that spot as her son, not as my husband. The whole family was there. His older sister, Tasha, with her forever judging eyebrows. His younger cousin, Malik, already halfway through his second plate. An aunt in a church hat, even though it was Saturday night. A couple of family friends Denise called her prayer circle, though I'd heard what they said when they thought I was out of earshot. And it sounded a lot more like gossip than prayer. I passed the cornbread, smiled, laughed when I was supposed to. I told my little safe stories about work, how my supervisor mispronounced my name at the staff meeting again, how the new intern thought Excel was advanced programming, the usual. But the whole time I could feel her watching me. Not just looking, watching, measuring, weighing. "Darius, baby," she said suddenly, cutting through Malik's story about his job. "You remember when you used to come over here every Sunday, before you got married?" The whole table went quiet in that way black families do when they sense drama coming and want front row seats. Darius chuckled, missing the landmine. "Ma, I still come over." "Not like you used to," she said. She didn't look at him when she said it. She looked at me. Back then, I didn't have to beg to see my own son. Back then, I didn't have to get on a schedule like some stranger. I felt my stomach drop. I knew this script. I'd heard versions of it on the phone, in the kitchen, whispered in the hallway when she thought I was asleep. "Denise," I started quietly. "You know you can call any—" She snapped. "I do call, and my calls go to voicemail now." Darius shifted in his seat. "Ma, that's not fair. I've just been busy. We both have." "There it is," she said, slamming her fork down. The sound made the glasses rattle. "We." Her eyes were locked on me now, dark and sharp. "Ever since you got married," she continued, "everything is we. We can't come over. We are tired. We already have plans." She leaned forward, her voice dropping into that low, dramatic tone she saved for church testimonies and arguments. "You know what I hear when you say we? I hear her." She jabbed her finger in my direction. "I hear that she doesn't want you around your own mother." Heat crawled up my neck. Everyone was watching. No one said a word. "That's not true," I said softly. "I've never told him not to come see you. I've literally—" "Oh, please," she cut in, laughing that humorless laugh. "You young girls always play dumb. You think I don't see what's going on?" She pushed her chair back and stood up, hands on the table, like a judge about to deliver a sentence. "You used to show up for everything," she said to Darius. "Family dinners, cookouts. I never had to wonder where my son was. And now," she gestured around the room, "you show up late to your own mama's house with store-bought pie and a wife who looks like she'd rather be anywhere else." I swallowed. Hard. My eyes stung. But I forced myself to keep looking at her. "I didn't want to be late," I said. "I had to work today, and then we hit traffic on—" She rolled her eyes. Always an excuse, always a reason. Then her voice cracked. "Just a little. He never used to have reasons before you." The room shrank. I could feel every breath, every eye, every ripple of judgment like heat on my skin. Tasha, Denise said suddenly, turning to her daughter. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm imagining it. Does your brother come around the way he used to? Tasha shrugged, casually cruel. He be with his wife now, she said, drawing the word out. Married life, Ma. You know how it is. Denise pounced on that. Exactly, she said. Married life. But being a wife doesn't mean you get to cut off a man from the woman who brought him into this world. She turned back to me, and there it was, the thing she'd been circling all night. The accusation she'd probably rehearsed in the mirror. You stole my son from me. The words hit me like a slap. Not whispered, not private. Said loud and clear, right there at the table in front of his whole family, with the collard greens cooling on our plates. For a second, my brain went blank. I heard the clock ticking on the wall, the hum of the fridge, Malik's fork pausing in mid-air. What? I managed. My voice came out small, like I was 12 again. You heard me, she said. You stole my son. You took him, wrapped him up in your little apartment, your little schedule, your little feelings, and now he can't even answer his phone without checking with you first? That's not what's happening, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. We've been trying to balance time, that's all. We, she scoffed. We. Girl, this is not France. A couple of people tittered nervously. You don't own him. That is my son. She thumped her chest. My blood, my baby. I carried him, I raised him, I wiped his tears. I stayed up when he was sick. I prayed over him. You think just because you put a ring on your finger, he belongs to you now? My eyes flicked to Darius. He was staring down at his plate, jaw tight, hands clenched, but his mouth stayed shut. Darius, I said, almost whispering, are you really going to let her talk to me like that? He finally looked up, at his mother, then at me, then back at his mother. I saw the war in his eyes, the tug of war he'd never learned how to step out of. Ma, he said slowly, that's not fair. She didn't steal me. I chose to get married. I'm still here, ain't I? He tried to laugh it off. We just been busy. Denise's face twisted. Busy with her, she spat. Too busy for your own family. Too busy for your mother. Tell the truth, Darius. Every time I ask you to come over, what do you say? Let me see what she says. That's not what I... And when I ask why you can't stay longer, what do you tell me? She's tired. She doesn't feel good. She had a long day. I have a long life of raising you. And suddenly this little girl comes along and you treat me like I'm some obligation on a to-do list. I felt the tears pricking harder now, threatening to spill. I bit the inside of my cheek. I've never asked him to choose, I said quietly. Not once. I've rearranged my schedule. I've come over after work. I've driven across town when I was sick just so you wouldn't feel ignored. I have never asked him to pick between you and me. She laughed in my face. You don't have to say it, she snapped. You do it. The size, the attitude, the way you check the time. The way you go quiet when we talk about our family plans. Our family? I repeated, stung. I thought we were all the same family now. Her mouth curled. My family existed long before you showed up. She said, I didn't invite you into this world. He did. And let me tell you something, because clearly no one has. You can be replaced. Mothers can't. Something broke inside my chest at that. Maybe it was because I lost my own father young, and I knew exactly how irreplaceable some people are. Maybe it was because my own mother had hugged me the day I got married and said, You're starting your own family now, baby. Go build something beautiful. Instead of clinging like this, whatever it was, the pain came up fast, hot, humiliating. The room blurred at the edges. I felt one tear slip, then another. I wiped them away quickly, hoping no one noticed. They did. Aw, now she crying, Tasha muttered under her breath. Not quite low enough. See? Denise said triumphantly. Always the victim, always the tears. Just like when I told you not to move so far away. You cried then too. You've been dragging him away from me from the moment you showed up. I pushed my chair back slowly, the legs scraping against the floor. I'm going to use the bathroom, I said, my voice barely more than air. No one stopped me. No one said, Ma, that was too far. No one said, you don't talk to my wife like that. Darius didn't follow me. The bathroom was small and over-decorated. Fake flowers, lace curtains, a little sign that said, "Bless this home," over the mirror. I closed the door, turned the lock, and finally let my face crumple. The sobs came in waves, silent at first, then harsh and ugly. I pressed a hand over my mouth so they wouldn't hear. Because if they heard me crying, she'd say I was being dramatic, emotional, proving her point. You stole my son from me. The words looped in my head like a curse. I thought about all the times I'd said no to my own family to spend time with his. The weekends I'd sat in this very house, helping her cook, washing dishes, trying to earn a place that apparently was never going to be mine. The holidays we divided so carefully, making sure his mother never felt left out. I thought about the nights I'd stayed up with Darius when he was stressed from work, the mornings I packed his lunch, the times I reminded him to call her because I didn't want to be the wife who took him away. And still, somehow, I was the thief. Tears blurred the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, eyes red, nose running, makeup ruined. A 30-something black woman who suddenly felt 12 years old again, being blamed for something she didn't do. I cried until my chest hurt, until my legs went numb from sitting on the closed toilet seat, until the house went quiet outside the door and I realized time had passed and no one had knocked to ask if I was okay. When I finally stood up, my face felt swollen, but there was a strange calm under the hurt. A low, steady throb instead of a sharp stab. I washed my face, patted it dry with a towel that smelled like too much fabric softener, and looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. You did not steal him, I whispered to my reflection, testing the words like a new language. You did not steal him. I didn't know it yet, not fully, but that was the first crack. The first tiny fracture in the story she'd been telling about me for years. The crack where the truth would eventually slip through. When I found the messages, the calls, the proof that I had never been the thief in this house. The ride home after that dinner felt like being trapped in a moving coffin. Streetlights slid over the windshield in long streaks of yellow and white. The radio was off. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the little plastic cross dangling from the rearview mirror, tapping softly against the glass every time we hit a bump. Darius drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes glued to the road like it might suddenly open up and swallow us. I sat angled toward the window, my hands twisted in my lap, makeup streaked from crying in his mother's bathroom. I waited for him to say it. Babe, I'm sorry. She was out of line. She shouldn't have spoken to you like that. Something. Anything. Instead, he cleared his throat and said, You know how my mama gets when she's emotional. I laughed, one sharp, shocked sound. Emotional? I repeated. She said I stole you, in front of everyone, like I'm some homewrecker who broke into her house and dragged you out. He winced. She didn't mean it like that. How else did she mean it? I turned to him. The passing lights painted his face in harsh bands of shadow and glow. Please explain to me the generous version of "you stole my son." I'd love to hear it. He was quiet for a moment. She's just scared, he said finally. You know she's been alone a long time, since my dad left. It's always been me and her. This is hard for her. So she makes it hard for me, I said. Cool. Come on, don't do that. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel. You're taking it too personal. I stared at him. She attacked me personally, Darius, in your mama's house, at your mama's table, in front of your whole family, and you sat there. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I was trying not to make it worse, he said. You know how she gets when she feels attacked. I swallow the bitter taste in my mouth. You know how I get when I'm left alone in the fire, I said quietly. We drove in silence for a few blocks. Do you think that? I asked suddenly. Do you think I stole you from her? He kept his eyes on the road. No. Look at me and say it, I said. My voice shook. Do you think I've been trying to take you away from your mother? Red light. The car slowed. He sighed and finally turned his head. No, he said again. I don't think that, okay? Then why does she feel so sure? She's dramatic, he said, already turning forward as the light changed. She tells herself stories. She always has. She just needs time to adjust. The word stories lodged itself in my mind. Stories. The weeks after that dinner stretched out like a tightrope. Every step felt risky. Darius started going over there more often again. At first, I tried to come along to prove I wasn't avoiding her, but every time we walked through that front door, I could feel it. The temperature drop, the way conversations shifted. She'd greet him with a long, dramatic hug. "There's my baby," she'd say, loud enough for me to hear from the entryway. Then, a few beats later, "You came alone?" with hopeful eyes, even though I was literally untying my shoes right beside him. When she caught sight of me, the sparkle dimmed. "Oh," she'd say, "you're here too." Little cuts. She stopped talking to me directly. If I asked, "Do you need help in the kitchen?" she'd respond by looking at Darius. "Tell your wife I've got it," she'd say. When we left, she'd hug him for ages, whisper something in his ear, and barely touch my elbow. One night, I stayed home. I told Darius I had a migraine and couldn't handle the tension on top of the pain. It was half the truth. "Just go see her," I said. "I'll be okay." He hesitated, then kissed my forehead. "Text me if you need me," he said, and left. The apartment was painfully quiet. I sat on the couch with a blanket around my shoulders, the TV on but not really watching. My mind flicked through scenes like channels, her standing at the head of that table, finger stabbing the air, accusing me. His silence, my reflection in her bathroom mirror, eyes swollen from crying. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was his sister, Tasha. "You really should let him come over more," she texted. "He's stressed because he's always trying to keep peace between y'all." I stared at the screen. "I literally told him to go see her without me," I typed. "I'm not stopping him." Bubble, bubble. Press pause and emphasis, she said. "Ma says you always got an issue, always tired, always don't want to come. Maybe back off a little. He's her son first." Her son first. The words dug under my skin like splinters. I typed, deleted, typed again. Then finally set the phone down without replying. That night when Darius came home, he smelled like his mother's house. Fried chicken and pine sol and that floral perfume she loved. He sat on the edge of the bed to untie his shoes. "How was it?" I asked carefully. "Fine," he said. "She made smothered pork chops. Asked about you." "Oh," I raised an eyebrow. "What'd she say?" He shrugged. "Just asked if you were still mad at her." I felt my jaw clench. "I'm not mad at her. I'm hurt," I said. "Those are different things." He gave me that look, the one that said I was making it complicated. "Same thing to her," he muttered. And there it was again. The story. In her version, I was the problem. I was moody, controlling, keeping him away, always tired, always complaining. I started to notice patterns. If Darius and I had a disagreement at home, his mother somehow knew the emotional temperature the next day. I'd get a text like, "He all right? You don't need to be stressing him out like that," even though we hadn't told anyone anything. Say something harmless, like, "Babe, can we not go anywhere this Sunday? I just want one day to do nothing." She'd bring it up later in twisted form. "It's always what she wants," she'd say on the phone, loud enough for me to hear through the speaker. "You used to love coming over on Sundays. Now she got you acting all funny." I started journaling. At first, it was just to get the poison out. Pages and pages of dates, times, little moments, what she said, how he responded, what I felt. I wrote like I was documenting a crime I couldn't name yet. But a part of me, deep down, was building a record. One evening, a few months after that dinner, we were in bed watching something we weren't really paying attention to. Darius's phone buzzed on the nightstand over and over. 3, 4, 5 times in a row. He was already half asleep, breathing heavy, one arm slung over his eyes. "Your phone," I said softly. He grunted, not moving. The buzzing stopped for a second, then started again. I sighed, reached over to flip it to silent, and saw the name on the screen. Ma. Again, 11:42 p.m. My hand hovered over the screen. "Darius," I whispered, "your mom's calling you." Again. He groaned. "If it's important, she'll text," he mumbled, rolling onto his side. Within seconds, he was out. The phone buzzed one more time, then lit up with a long notification. Text message. Another. The screen kept glowing in the dark like a beacon I was trying not to swim toward. I had his passcode. He'd given it to me a long time ago. Proud. Like, "We're married, I don't hide anything from you." I rarely used it. I never felt the need. But that night, with the blue light flashing in my face and my chest aching from months of being painted as a villain, something in me snapped. I didn't feel sneaky. I felt tired. I opened his phone. The messages were already stacked up from earlier that day. I scrolled. "Ma, I guess you too busy again. Ever since she came around, it's always we. You know she don't like you coming over here. I seen her face last time, rolling her eyes when I hugged you. SMH. My heart thudded. I had never rolled my eyes at him hugging his mother. I barely let my eyes blink around her, terrified she'd twisted into something. He'd responded hours ago. A block quote. "Darius, it's not like that. Stop it. She'd just be tired from work sometimes," trying to keep peace on both sides. There it was again, the story that this was some equal tug of war. Not one woman clawing at him and another bending herself backwards trying not to break. I scrolled up further, and deeper I went, the more I felt my stomach knot. "Ma, you don't sound happy over there. Ma, I can hear it in your voice. You used to laugh more before she came along. Ma, a mother knows when her child ain't right. Ma, I just don't want to lose you because of some girl who don't respect me. Some girl." She went on and on. Long paragraphs of guilt, accusation, martyrdom. "Ma, she told me not to call after 8. You know how that hurt?" I froze. I had never said that. Ever. If anything, I'd told Darius the opposite. "Call your mother whenever you want. Put her on speaker. Invite her over." I scrolled faster now, fingers shaking. A week earlier, after a small disagreement Darius and I had had about money, she had texted, "Ma, she's just using you anyway. Ma, I see how she look at the things you buy her, but she don't do nothing for you back. Ma, one day you're gonna remember who really got your back." And then, tucked between the walls of text, like landmines, "Ma, don't tell her I said this. Ma, she'll probably throw a fit." There it was. She had built an entire fictional version of me in those messages. Controlling, ungrateful, manipulative. The kind of woman who would forbid a man from seeing his own mother. And he hadn't stopped her. Once or twice he'd pushed back gently. "It's not that serious, Ma." But he never said, "That's not true. Don't talk about my wife like that." I kept scrolling, my chest tight. Then I saw the group chat. Family circle. I hesitated, then tapped. The first thing I saw was my name. Denise. I tried with that girl. Denise, but she got my son acting brand new. Denise, she don't want him over here. Always complaining she tired. Tasha. I knew she was like that from the jump. Auntie Deb. Spirit just ain't right. Malik, y'all need to pray on it. Underneath, more. Denise, I told him she stole him from me. Denise, y'all should have seen her face. Tasha. Lol, she looked like she was gonna break. Auntie Deb, maybe she needed to hear it. I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. It wasn't just that she'd said it in the heat of the moment. She was proud of it, reliving it, sharing it like a funny story in the group chat. My hands trembled so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the screen and smudged the light. In that dark room, with Darius snoring softly beside me, his mother's words wrapped around me like chains. But beneath the hurt, something else flickered. Small, cold, focused. These weren't just insults. They were receipts. Date, time, exact words. Proof that she had been telling this story about me behind my back for a long time. Proof that she was lying about things I'd never said. Proof that she'd intentionally twisted every effort I'd made to include her. For months, I'd been asking myself, am I crazy? Am I really the one pulling him away? Am I being too sensitive? Now, the answer glowed back at me from his phone in little gray and blue bubbles. No, I wasn't crazy. She was rewriting reality, and everyone around her was co-signing it. I wiped my face, took a screenshot, then another, then the group chat, then the late-night guilt trips. I saved them to my own phone, my fingers moving with a calm I didn't feel. If she wanted to play this like a courtroom drama where I was the thief, fine. Because someday soon, I realized, I was going to need evidence. Not just to prove to her who I really was, but to remind him who he had married and who had been quietly stealing from us the whole time. The next morning, the sun came up like it hadn't read the script. I woke up with that raw, puffy-eyed feeling that comes after you've cried hard and slept badly. Darius was already in the shower, humming something under the water like it was any other day. His phone was on the nightstand again, dark and innocent. Mine was on my side of the bed, and in it sat a little gallery of screenshots that changed everything. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the water run, thinking about all the times I'd doubted myself. The times I'd apologized first after an argument. The times I'd said, maybe I'm being too sensitive. The times I'd swallowed a comment because I didn't want to be the difficult wife. All the while, she had been spinning this narrative that I was controlling, selfish, possessive, jealous. That I was pulling him away from his real family. That he was some trapped prince in a castle I'd built around him. And the worst part, not that she said it. The worst part was that he never stomped it out. Even when he knew it wasn't true, he let it sit in the room like a guest nobody wanted to ask to leave. The shower shut off. A few moments later, he stepped out, towel around his waist, rubbing his hair with another towel, humming. "Morning," he said, like my whole world hadn't shifted in the dark 6 hours before. "Morning," I answered, my voice sounding calmer than I felt. He dropped onto the edge of the bed to put on his boxers. "You okay? You were tossing in your sleep." I watched him carefully. "I read your messages last night," I said. He froze, one leg half in. "What?" "I read the texts," I repeated. "Between you and your mother, and the family group chat." His jaw tightened. Slowly, he finished pulling his boxers on, back still to me. "Why would you do that?" he asked. "No. Did something happen? No. What did you see?" "Just straight to you're the problem." "Because my name kept lighting up your phone at midnight," I said. "Because I've been sitting here for months feeling like I'm losing my mind, and I needed to know if the story in her head matched the reality I'm living." He turned around, eyes sharp. "That's still my phone," he said. "You can't just—" "Darius." I sat up, blanket falling away. "We share a bed, a bank account, and a last name. Your mother has turned me into a villain in her imagination, and you've let her. I think privacy left the building a while ago." He stared at me, breathing harder now. "You violated my trust." The irony almost made me laugh. "Your mother has been violating mine for a year," I said quietly. telling lies about me, poisoning your family against me, feeding you guilt every time you leave her house. And you're standing here worried about me looking at messages that were already affecting my life without my consent." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "What did you see?" he asked finally, voice defensive instead of curious. "I saw her saying I told you not to call after 8, I said. "I saw her telling your sister I keep you from coming over. I saw her bragging in the group chat about accusing me of stealing you, like it was some big moment of truth." His face twisted. "She's just upset," he said. "She says stuff when she's emotional." "This isn't emotional," I snapped. "Emotional is crying on the phone. What she's doing is calculated. This is a storyline she's been building, brick by brick. And you've let her build it on my back." Silence stretched between us. "I've asked you so many times," I said. "I've sat in this bed and told you how small she makes me feel, how isolated, how she never speaks to me directly, how she weaponizes you. And every time you say the same things. That's just how she is. She doesn't mean it. She's emotional." He looked away. "I thought maybe I was overreacting," I continued, my voice softer now. "I really did. I thought, maybe I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe if I bring her flowers. Maybe if I call her first. Maybe if I swallow a few more comments and smile a little harder, she'll see I'm not the enemy." I took a breath, but now I see it clearly. There's nothing I could have done. This isn't about who I am. It's about the story she refuses to let go of. That she is the main character, and every other woman is a threat. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. "She went through a lot when my dad left," he murmured. "She always said I was the only one who stayed. And I came in as the woman who might take you," I said. "I get it. I really do. I have empathy for that. But empathy doesn't require self-sacrifice. Understanding doesn't mean I have to stand still while she sets me on fire." He sat at the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. "So, what do you want me to do?" he asked. The question was the same as always, but for the first time I heard the gap inside it. He wasn't asking, "What is right?" He was asking, "What will make you quiet?" "I want you to tell the truth," I said simply. "To her, to your family, to yourself. I want you to stop letting her pretend I'm the villain in this story." "That's not so easy," he muttered. "It wasn't easy for me to sit there while she accused me to my face either," I replied. "But I did it. I took the hit. I stayed calm. I tried to keep the peace. Now it's your turn." He rubbed his hands over his face. "You're asking me to choose," he said. "No," I said, and my voice surprised even me with how steady it was. "I'm asking you to stop letting her choose for you, because right now she gets to decide who you are in this marriage, and I'm not living like that anymore." He went quiet. I realized in that moment that this was bigger than his mother. This was about him, about whether he'd keep shrinking every time she pulled his strings, or whether he'd finally cut the threads. "I'm not trying to come between you," I said softly. "I don't want you to stop seeing her. I don't want you to choose me over her. I want you to choose truth over her version of you. That's it." He stared at the wall for a long time. Finally he sighed. "I'll talk to her," he said. I didn't let myself smile or thank him or act relieved. I'd learned my lesson about celebrating promises too early. "When?" I asked instead. He frowned. "Why does it matter?" "Because I'm not going back in that house until she knows I know," I said. "Until she knows you've seen the receipts. Until she understands that I will no longer be a silent character in whatever story she's selling." There was that word again. Receipts. Later that week, he went over there to talk. He kissed my cheek at the door. "I'll handle it," he said. "Don't worry." I watched him go, my arms folded tightly across my chest. I didn't follow. I didn't text. I didn't pace the floor waiting for a report. Instead, I opened my laptop, poured myself some cold coffee, and started working on a new document. At the top, I wrote, "Mill Narrative versus Reality." Underneath, I listed each of her claims. "She says I told you not to call after 8. She says I don't let you come over. She says I roll my eyes when you hug her. Next to each one, I wrote what had actually happened. Reality told you call your mama whenever you want, put her on speaker if you like. Reality, I literally encouraged you to go over without me because the tension was making me sick. Reality, I avoid eye contact so she doesn't twist my facial expressions. Then I attached screenshots, dates, times, the cracks in her story. I wasn't planning to march over and drop this in her lap, not yet, but writing it out did something to me. It reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that my reality mattered, even if she refused to acknowledge it. Hours later, the front door opened. I closed my laptop. Darius walked in looking worn out, like he'd been through 10 rounds in a ring. He dropped his keys into the bowl by the door and just stood there. "Well?" I asked. He scratched his head. "She got upset," he said we ganged up on her, that you turned me against her. "Of course she did. What did you say?" I asked quietly. "That it wasn't about sides," he said. "That she needed to stop saying things that weren't true. That you never told me not to call her. That you never kept me from coming over." For a second, a flicker of something like hope lit up in my chest. "And?" I pressed. "And she cried," he said she was losing her son. Said no one cares about her feelings. That she's always the bad guy. There it was again, the starring role she loved so much. "And what did you do?" I asked. He hesitated. "I hugged her," he admitted. "Told her that's not what I meant, that she's not the bad guy, that I just need her to ease up off you a little." I closed my eyes. Ease up off you a little. Not stop lying. Not apologize. Not undo what you've done. Just soften the edges. "Did you tell her I saw the messages?" I asked. "No," he said quickly. "That would just make things worse. She'd feel violated." I looked at him, really looked at him, and finally saw what was in front of me. A man who wanted peace more than he wanted truth. A man who would bend himself into knots to avoid being uncomfortable, even if it meant watching his wife bleed. "I need some air," I said, grabbing my keys. "Where are you going?" he asked. "For a drive," I said, "to clear my head." In the car, my hands shook on the steering wheel. Not from fear, but from something sharper, something closer to resolve. I drove without thinking, turned corners I didn't plan, until I ended up in the parking lot of a quiet coffee shop with big windows and soft music. I went inside, ordered something I barely tasted, and sat down at a corner table with my phone. I opened the gallery. Flicked through the screenshots. Her words glared back at me. "You know she don't like you coming over here. She told me not to call after 8. She stole you from me." Then I opened the family group chat captures. Y'all should have seen her face. Maybe she needed to hear it. Maybe I had needed to hear it. Not the accusation, the truth behind it. She wasn't afraid of losing her son. She was afraid of losing control. And for the first time, I realized I had something she didn't think I had. Evidence. Not just of what she'd said, but of how she operated. Of the way she twisted reality, made herself the victim, painted everyone else as the aggressor. I sipped my coffee, mind racing. Up until then, I'd always imagined evidence meant catching her in some big dramatic lie in front of everyone. But this was different. This was quieter, more dangerous. Because if I chose to use it, I wouldn't be playing defense anymore. I'd be rewriting the narrative. Not in secret text messages, but in the one place she never expected to be confronted. Right in front of the family she'd been performing for all along. 2 days after that coffee shop epiphany, the universe handed me the perfect stage. His cousin Tasha texted the family group chat. "Sunday dinner at Mama's, 6 p.m. Everybody better show up. No excuses." Normally, that message would make my stomach knot. The idea of walking back into that house, into that tight little circle where I was always one wrong breath away from being accused of stealing something, it drained me. This time, I just stared at the invite and felt ready. I walked into the living room where Darius was watching a game, phone in his hand. Your cousin invited us to dinner, I said. He glanced down, then back up. Yeah, I saw. We don't have to go if you're not up for it. I held his gaze. No, I said, we're going. He frowned. You sure? I'm done hiding in our own marriage, I said. If people are going to talk about me, they're going to do it in a room where I can answer back. He didn't know what to do with that, but he nodded. Sunday came fast. I dressed deliberately, not to impress them, but to armor myself. Black slacks, soft cream blouse, simple gold hoops. No drama, no bright colors for them to call too much. I wanted to look exactly like what I was, a grown woman who knew who she was walking in as. In my bag, tucked between my wallet and my lip gloss, was my phone with the screenshots, and a neat little PDF I'd made titled Receipts. I had emailed it to myself and to a fresh, clean address no one knew about, just in case. On the drive over, Darius kept flexing his fingers on the wheel. You don't have to start anything, he said finally. We can just eat, be cordial, and go. I looked out the passenger window at the houses sliding by. I'm not starting anything, I said. I'm ending something. His mother's house looked the same as always. Neat yard, little porch, that same wreath she changed with the seasons. Except tonight, it felt different. Less like a home, more like a courtroom. The minute we stepped inside, I could smell fried chicken and baked macaroni. Family voices bounced off the walls. Kids ran down the hallway, laughing, loud, alive. And right in the kitchen, like a queen at the center of her hive, stood his mother. She was stirring gravy, wearing her church dress, even though it was Sunday night, a gold cross glinting at her throat. When she saw me, her smile tightened, then smoothed out into something polite and paper-thin. Oh, she said, you came. That you had weight, like an accusation dressed in Sunday lace. We were invited, I said, hanging up my coat. I don't like to disappoint family. Her eyes flicked to Darius, as if checking whether he approved of my tone. He gave her a weak smile, kissing her cheek. She clung to him a second too long. My baby, she crooned. You never come see your mama anymore. There it was, soft guilt, weaponized. I took a deep breath, mentally placing her words on the narrative versus reality chart in my mind. Claim. You never come see me anymore. Reality. We were here 3 Sundays out of the last 5. I have the photos to prove it. We gathered round the dining table, long, dark wood covered in a plastic tablecloth with little flowers. Same seats as always. His mom at the head, Darius to her right, me beside him. His sisters and cousins filling in the rest. We prayed. Plates clinked. Small talk floated across the table like steam. Work, weather, who had a new baby, who needed prayer. For a while, I just watched. Watched how every story eventually wound around to his mother. How every compliment had to land in her lap. How every frustration turned into proof of her suffering. And then, like clockwork, she set the match. It started small. So, she said, cutting into her chicken, what time you heading out tonight? Don't want to keep your wife up past her bedtime. She gets mad when you stay too long. She said it lightly, like a joke tossed in the air. The table chuckled. All eyes slid to me. I felt my heart beat in my throat. Not because I was surprised, she always did this, but because this time I was ready. I gently put my fork down. I've never once told him he couldn't stay, I said, my voice even. Not once. She blinked at me, feigning innocence. Oh, honey, I was just playing. No, I said calmly. You weren't. You've been telling people for months that I don't let him come over, that I don't want him here, that I stole him from you. The table went quiet. Someone's fork scraped a plate and then froze. Her smile cracked. Well, if the shoe fits. It doesn't, I said, and I have the screenshots to prove it. The word screenshots changed the air. His sisters shifted in their chairs. Tasha raised her eyebrows. Darius stiffened beside me. Babe? I held up a hand. No, we're not doing this in whispers anymore. If my name is going to be in group chats, my voice is going to be in the room. His mother sat up straighter, using the full power of her matriarch stare. You really think you can come in my house and talk to me like that? I think I can defend myself in front of the people you've been talking to about me, I said. I unlocked my phone, heart pounding but hands steady. Hit the gallery, opened the folder. The first screenshot glowed back at me. I turned the screen toward the table. This, I said, tilting it so his sisters could see, is you telling Darius that I ordered him not to answer your calls after 8. That never happened. His mother leaned over, squinting, then sniffed. You went through his phone? That's the real violation here. Oh, we're going to talk about violate in a minute, I said. But first, we're going to talk about lies, because that's what this is. I swiped to the next one, the group chat. She don't like him over here, wants him all to herself. Asked, really, I asked, looking around. Because the last 3 times he came over without me, I literally told him to. I was at home doing laundry and sending food in Tupperware. Does that sound like someone stealing a son? One of his sisters looked away. Another bit her lip. Someone coughed. Darius stared at the table, like the wood grain was going to save him. His mother folded her arms. You taking jokes out of context, she said. Y'all young people don't know how to let things go. We was just venting. You weren't venting, I replied. You were rewriting reality. You accused me to my face of stealing your son. You turned me into a villain in this family and then laughed about it, later in a group chat. That's not venting. That's character assassination. Her face reddened. You always so dramatic. You and your big words. Character what? I just said how I felt. A mother is allowed to feel. You are absolutely allowed to feel, I said. You are not allowed to lie. The word lie hit harder than anything else. She flinched like I'd thrown something. I never lied about nothing, she snapped. He stopped coming around. He don't call like he used to. Ever since you came along, it's been different. And that hurts, I said, nodding. I understand that, truly. But it was easier to say she stole him than to admit he changed on his own. It was easier to make me the thief than to face the fact that he's grown and makes his own choices now. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. And here's the thing, I continued, my voice low but clear. I could have lived with you not liking me. I could have accepted that. You're entitled to your feelings. But when you started telling lies that made this whole table look at me like a problem, that's when it stopped being just your feelings. That's when it started being my life. The room felt hot. I could feel eyes bouncing between us like ping-pong balls. Her bottom lip trembled, but I recognized it now. The overture to a performance. You don't know what it's like, she whispered, to give birth to a son and watch some woman come in and turn him against you. I looked at Darius. There it was, the crossroads. Did I turn you against her? I asked him. Or did I beg you, over and over, to tell the truth? To stop letting her talk about me this way? He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing hard. You never told me to stop seeing her, he said quietly. You just asked me to stop lying by staying silent. The admission hung in the air like incense. His mother's eyes widened, betrayal and fear mixing. So you on her side now, she said, after everything I did for you, after all the nights I stayed up with you. This is how you repay me? Letting her disrespect me in my own house? This isn't about sides, I said. This is about facts. It's about respect going both ways. You say I stole your son, but every time you say that, what you're really saying is that he doesn't have a mind of his own, that he's some little boy you can tug back and forth like a toy. The table was dead silent now. Even the kids in the living room had quieted down, sensing the shift. I took a breath, knowing this was the moment that would decide everything. I am not your enemy, I said. I never wanted to be. I married your son, not your throne. I have tried, God knows I have tried, to fold myself into this family, to respect your place, to honor what you two share. but I will not live the rest of my life defending myself against lies you know aren't true. Her eyes glisten, not with humility, but with rage. So what? She asked. You gonna tell him not to come see me no more? That the plan? Finish stealing him for good? I shook my head. No, I said. I'm not going to tell him anything. I'm going to tell you. Every eye focused on me. If you ever, I said, my voice steady now, the shake finally gone, tell anyone again that I stopped him from seeing you, that I told him not to call, that I stole him, I will take these screenshots, print them out, and personally deliver them to every person in this family. I will not be your silent villain. If you insist on painting me as a thief, you're going to have to do it in the light. Her mouth opened and closed like she was searching for air. And if you need time to sit with that, that's fine, I added. I pushed my chair back. But until you're ready to tell the truth about me, I will not set foot in this house again. I stood. Darius hesitated, then slowly rose beside me. It wasn't dramatic. There was no epic speech, just the soft scrape of his chair joining mine. I love you, Ma, he said. His voice shook, but the words were clear. But she's right. I'm not a stolen boy. I'm a grown man, and I won't let you talk about my wife like that anymore. For the first time since I'd met her, his mother looked truly stunned. Not performative, not playing to the crowd, just stunned. We walked out to the soundtrack of her silence. In the car, my hands finally started to shake. You okay? He asked. I exhaled a breath I felt like I'd been holding since the night she said I'd stolen him. No, I said honestly. But I'm done being quiet. As we pulled away from the house, my phone buzzed. The family group chat was lighting up. Y'all okay? What happened? Mama crying. I stared at the screen. For once, my name wasn't in there. Because if they wanted to talk about me now, they'd have to speak in full sentences, with the truth watching them back. If you'd told me that night, driving home from his mother's house with my heart pounding and my phone buzzing, that things could ever feel peaceful again, I would have laughed in your face. Peace wasn't even on my wish list. I just wanted the noise to stop. The next few weeks were strange. His mother didn't call me. She called him. At first it was the usual, crying, gasping, accusing. You let her humiliate me in front of my own family. You so gone over that woman, you forgot who raised you. She the one breaking this family up, not me. He took those calls in the bedroom, in the car, on the balcony. And for the first time since I'd known him, he didn't hide them. He'd come back out, sit on the couch next to me, and say, she's still mad, like he was giving a weather report. One night, after she'd left a particularly long voicemail, he put the phone on speaker. Her voice poured into. Our living room, full of sobs and scriptures and weaponized nostalgia. I carried you 9 months. I worked 3 jobs. I went without for you. And now you letting some girl talk to me like I ain't nobody? I watched his face while she talked. For the first time, he looked tired. Not guilty, not defensive, just tired. When the voicemail ended, he didn't say anything right away. He just sat there, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. After a long silence, he said quietly, "She really believes that story." "Yeah," I said, "because every time you let it slide, it gets more real to her." He nodded, jaw tight. The next morning, he called her back while I was making coffee. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the kitchen is small and walls are thin. His voice was low but clear. "Ma, I need you to hear me," he said. "Nobody stole me from you. I left home because I'm a grown man. I spend time with my wife because I chose her, not because she forced me." I couldn't hear her response, but I could imagine it. He kept going anyway. "And I'm not going to let you keep lying on her. If you're hurt, say you're hurt. If you miss me, say you miss me. But stop telling people she's keeping me from you. That's not true. She must have said something sharp. because his voice rose for the first time. "No," he said, "this is not her talking. This is me. I'm telling you what I will and won't accept. You want a relationship with me? It has to include respecting my wife. Period." He hung up before she could turn it into a sermon. He came into the kitchen, leaned against the counter, and looked at me. "You heard all that, didn't you?" he asked. "Most of it," I said softly. He gave a small, tired smile. "Good. I need you to know I'm not hiding anymore." That became the quiet turning point. Not some big dramatic scene where she suddenly realized she was wrong and apologized in tears. Life isn't that neat. Instead, it was small shifts. She stopped texting the whole family group chat about these ungrateful children. She still posted Bible verses about honoring your parents, but my name stopped being attached like a warning label. She didn't invite us to Sunday dinner anymore. I thought that last part would hurt more than it did, but honestly, it felt like rest. No more rehearsing comebacks in my head on the drive over. No more smiling while someone told a story that made me the punchline. No more bracing myself every time a cousin said, "So, how y'all doing?" in that tone. We built something different instead. We started our own little rituals. Sunday mornings became ours. We slept in, made pancakes in our tiny kitchen, cleaned up slowly with music playing. Sometimes gospel, sometimes old school R&B that reminded him of his childhood. He still went to see her sometimes. Not every week, not out of obligation, but choice. The first time he said, "I'm going to stop by Ma's for an hour. You want to come?" I paused. "Is she still telling people I stole you?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not since that night. She don't talk about you at all now," which is its own thing, but no more lies. It didn't feel like enough. It also felt like more than I'd ever gotten. "I'm not ready," I said, "but I'm glad she's not using my name as a weapon anymore." He kissed my forehead. "When you're ready, we'll go. If you're never ready, that's okay too." We went to therapy, real therapy, not just talking in circles at 2 a.m. We unpacked years of him being the good son, always bending, always smoothing things over so his mother never had to sit in discomfort. We unpacked my own guilt, the little girl in me that had been trained to believe that if an older woman was upset, it must somehow be my fault. My therapist asked me a question that stuck. Block quote, "If she was anyone else, not your husband's mother, just a random woman at church, would you allow her to speak to you this way more than once?" The answer was instant. "No." "Then why," she asked gently, "is your self-respect suddenly negotiable just because someone has a title?" That question changed everything. Months passed. The evidence I'd found, the screenshots, the dates, the documented reality, did more than just win an argument. They became a mirror. For me, for him, for her. People treat you differently when they know you're willing to bring the truth into the room. Cousins who used to tilt their heads and say, "You know how she is, just ignore it," started pulling me aside at events. "Auntie, been doing this for years," one whispered at a graduation cookout months later. "You're just the first one who wouldn't swallow it. I respect that." His older aunt, the one who always stayed a little removed from the drama, quietly pressed my hand one day and said, "Sometimes to save a family, somebody gotta stop pretending. Don't let them make you feel crazy for being honest." And his mother? She didn't apologize. Not in the way I used to fantasize about. Tears, confession, a trembling, "I'm sorry, baby, I was wrong." What she did was smaller and somehow more real. At his niece's birthday, the first time we were in the same room again after the confrontation, she approached us slowly. She hugged him first, as always, held on a little longer than usual, like she was afraid if she let go he might disappear. Then she turned to me. "Hello," she said. Not "little miss thing," not "you," not a sigh and an eye roll, just "hello." "Hi," I replied. We didn't hug, we didn't pretend, but there, in that tiny, neutral space, was something new. A line she knew not to cross. Later, as Darius and I were cleaning up spilled juice from the floor and wrangling balloons into trash bags, he looked at me. "You okay?" he asked. I thought about it. "I'm good," I said slowly. "Not because of her, because of me. Because I finally understood something I wish someone had told me years ago. You can love your husband and still refuse to be his mother's punching bag. You can respect elders and still demand the truth. You can be the bigger person without being the silent one. The real revenge wasn't the screenshots. It wasn't the confrontation at the table. It wasn't even her stunned silence when I walked out. The real revenge was this quiet, steady life we built afterward. A marriage where my name is safe, even when I'm not in the room. A life where family is no longer defined by who can hurt me and get away with it, but by who can sit with the truth and stay. One night, months later, I was scrolling through old photos and found one from that very first Sunday dinner, when she told me I'd stolen her son. In it, I was smiling. So was she. But I could see it now. The tension in my shoulders, the tightness around my eyes. I stared at that girl on the screen and felt a wave of tenderness. She thought being loved by him required being tolerated by her. She thought silence was the price of staying. She didn't know yet that her voice was her evidence too, that speaking up was the moment everything started to change. I locked my phone, rolled over, and tucked myself against Darius's chest. "Thank you," I murmured. "For what?" he asked, half asleep. "For finally standing beside me at that table." He exhaled, arm tightening around me. "Thank you," he whispered back, "for making me see what I was letting happen." In the darkness, with his heartbeat steady in my ear, I realized I hadn't stolen anyone's son. I'd rescued my own marriage from a story that was never mine to carry. And that was the sweetest justice of all.